Good morning, Denise Dryden here. I'm on Bainbridge Island in my backyard next to this amazing cedar tree that's been here for probably at least 200 years. That's much I know. Sort of stands guard at the back of the house. It's beautiful. First day it stopped raining. I think it rained for 7 days straight. So occasionally there'll be a drip. So if you see something land on my face, just laugh. I'm trying to see if I can do this without getting dripped on. Today I want to talk about ownership, boundaries, and empowerment. And over the last week, I've been playing a lot with this with families. They're going to go into a gathering where they get to work together, they get to see their kid, and because again, I work for a therapeutic program, I thought I better put that point of reference in there, and preparing them for boundaries setting, for clarity, and for how to build a relationship forward. What I like about these three words is boundaries, is that we need to know what's important at all times for us, right? And then we need to know what's important. So too, boundaries, we can set boundaries. We can set limits. And number three, then we need to acknowledge what worked and what didn't work and what worked for us. So it's empowerment. So in order to really let's break each one of these down and then play with them and see how they work together. So ownership. This is all about you, the parent, the person. And I'm going to use a point of reference on parenting, and I want you to be able to take this from the parent to a child to parent to yourself, or the relationship in partnering with somebody else. So my point of reference is going to be about the parent, but you can switch that around and turn it into anything that you want it to. So what we're doing is we're covering the ways that you know yourself. You know yourself. In a video about 2 months ago, we talked about self-advocacy, how to bring all of your power down into something the size of a postage stamp, right? So when we know ourselves, when we self-advocate, this is sovereignty. This is like the neatest, clearest, most beautiful way of saying, this is who I am on this planet. This is what I'm here for. This is what matters to me. This is what I need. So when we take ownership of our life, what we do is we define those edges. We define the edges around who we are. Like, this is where I begin, and this is where I end. This is where I'm comfortable. This is where I'm not comfortable. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Now, we know that edges can be firm and permanent, but they can also be movable. And we need to know when they're movable and when they're full, or when they're firm, right? Where we begin and where we end. So pick a topic and let's play with this and come up with like 2 or 3 ways that you can say something really clearly to yourself. So because I'm dealing with teenagers, 17-and-a-half-year-old who the mom was like, what if she wants to buy cigarettes? It was like, go to the context of what cigarettes mean to you. I don't smoke. I'm not comfortable with cigarette smoke. I will never buy anyone a pack of cigarettes. Let's be really clear. At all times, the conversation is about I. Not you need to do this, or what about this, or what about that. We step out of lecturing and we take ownership, which is, this is what you need to know about me. I am not going to do this. I'm not going to do this because of this. I'm not going to do this because of this. This is me. This isn't about anyone else. This is you being clear with yourself. This is about self-advocating. And, there's no faltering. There's no apologies. You know yourself and you know what works for you, and you make that statement. So it's sort of like what we do is we hold the intention. I know how I feel about this. I don't know how it's going to come up. I don't know when it's going to come up. I'm not going to really get worried about the details. What I am going to do is keep holding the intention that anytime cigarettes come up in a conversation, I know how I feel about it. Self-ownership. And I call it thoughtful ownership, right? This is how we are conscious about what we own, what we know about ourselves, and what works. So then we take this to the next step, which is in boundaries. Watch this really cool TEDx talk last night by Dr. Alan Watkins. He's a neuroscientist and surgeon from England who did a TED Talk on emotions and feelings and the relationship between those two. I posted it on this Facebook coaching page. So if you're interested, you can go back and look at it. I believe the title is Feelings and Emotions. What he says is that ages 3 to 6, what we're basically doing as human beings is we're learning that there's a sound that we can make in our voice that means something like cup, tree, woman, leaves, green, whatever it is, that there's a physical language that goes with each of these items or each of these events. The next part is between 6 and 9, after they've been practicing language and getting to know that everything has a name and that they're in relationship to each other. From 6 to 9 is about learning the rules. And these rules are societal. These rules are individual. These rules are global. These rules are weird because it's like, can I have a sip of that? No, because it has alcohol in it and you're not allowed to drink until you're 21. You're not allowed to buy cigarettes until you're 18. You're not allowed to go up the down escalator. Think about all of the bizarre rules and then trying to translate those to a brand new clear slate child going, so can you do this? No. Can you do that? No. Can you do this? No. And that's what boundaries are. We need to know that from 6 to 9, they're going to learn the rules. And then when they get into their adolescence and they start individuating, what they're going to do is they're going to go, well, why is that rule there? And what's that rule about? Because this is healthy. This is intellectual. This is natural. This is desired. We want our kids to know what the rules are. We want them to know where the edges are. And we want them to know that they can push on the things that don't make sense. Key. Don't make sense, especially if they're absurd rules that don't pertain to you, or if they're solid rules that are absolutely need to be honored. So this is how our children explore the world. This is how they grow up, is that they learn how to push on rules and boundaries. So if you know this and you trust this, our job is to represent both the big societal norms like drinking age, smoking age, things like if you're going to drive a car, you need to have a driver's license and you need to have car insurance. And there's reasons for that, because if you get hit, and explain and help them understand why there are these societal norms. And then anything else that comes along is up to you, because there's your personal rules and guidelines for you and your house. So knowing that they're going to come and they're going to push on all of these boundaries, then we know that, so look at them being curious. Look at them pushing and trying to find out where the edges are. So we can do this without anger. We can do this without shaming them. We can do this without judgment, which is like, I have to tell you one more time. We ran out of patience. I'm totally aware of that. I'm a mom, right? I have gray hairs to prove that. However, what we need to know is that they're going to be curious and they're going to want to know, and our job is to help them learn, help them build this knowledge base, help them define what works. So whether they're a teen or a child, or you have an adult at work, or you have a partner that you're in a relationship with, they're going to keep trying to find out where your edges are, what works for you, what doesn't work. The clearer you are on your boundaries, the easier the relationship is. It's really interesting. It takes all the drama out of it. You're not making them bad or blaming them for something that they're doing. You're actually encouraging it. And then saying really clearly, I'm owning this. This is what's mine. This isn't. So when we become really wishy-washy, inconsistent, when we say things like, because I said so, what we do is we discredit ourselves. We don't give them a reason. They don't understand what our own edges are. And that's where the problem comes. Hold on, I got something in my throat. And my Montana mug of warm tea, my favorite. Empowerment is the third one. So when we take ownership and when we hold boundaries, the most important part is to be able to acknowledge that this is what our child, our teen, our partner is starting to learn, and then we empower them. We let them know that you see them. What you did right there is awesome. And what I see you doing is being self-guided in learning about me, learning about the house, learning about the relationship, learning about your world. I did a previous video on empowerment, and I talked about 3 things. One is the most important thing in understanding empowerment is to show up and pay attention, like to be present and to be there in the room. You can't empower someone if you're not listening, or if you're working on your phone, if you're multitasking, if you're driving and talking on the phone and you can't see how some child in the backseat of the car did a really good job of self-managing because you're too busy. Makes sense, right? So then they're going to ramp it up to try to get your attention. Of course they will. This is what kids do. So pay attention, show up, be present. Number 1. Number 2, collect all the data. Watch, observe, listen, figure out what they're doing, with what works and what doesn't work. Oh, look at that. Look what they just did there. Oh, look what they just did there. Look what they just did there. And you start to collect and store data. And then when you get a chance, you say something to them. Number 3, speaking your truth. I noticed that when your little sister kept poking you in the back, that you gently put her hand over and then picked up a book and ignored her. That was pretty amazing self-management. How did that feel? Or a teen, which is, I just saw you start to push me on the curfew for tonight, and then you just sort of paused and backed off and went and did something else, and I just want you to know it was really cool to watch you do that. These are empowering statements which says, I see you making management choices, self-guiding, taking ownership in your decision making, in those pauses, in the things that really matter. What we do when we empower another is we shift it from the external world to, which is the world is out there, they did this to me, how come that happens? And then it sort of turns into blame, and it turns into victim potential. And we move it into the internal, which is how they chose to be in that moment, right? How they chose to be at any given time. We saw it, we talk to it, we speak to it, and we say, man, that's maturity, that's compassion, that's wisdom. And we let them know that they matter, that we are watching them grow, and we're watching them grow into really cool, responsible human beings. This growth of theirs means that we're supporting their own ownership, their own sovereignty in themselves, their own self-advocacy. And it's not about us. I'm not proud that you did that. It's about, how does that feel because you made that choice? So we take it out of us and our bodies and what we think is great as parents, and we say, I noticed you doing something really good. We also let them learn to trust themselves. And when they make some decisions and they feel good about it, then they know how to make decisions, and they know how boundaries are held. They know what ownership is about, and they have a deeper level of respect. I think the most important thing is that they become curious. We want our kids to know what are the rules that make sense, and what are the rules that no longer serve us, and how to navigate in and around, because all great innovation, all great creativity has started by saying, this is what the norm does. Let me go out here a little further and show you what else is possible. But in order to do that, they need to know what those norms are. So ownership, boundaries, and empowerment. Those 3 are uniquely connected, and they help us guide ourselves forward, our children forward, and hopefully provide better forms of wisdom out there in the world. This is Denise Dryden. You can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. And if you have any questions, give me a call. I would love to chat with you. Take care. Have a good Sunday. Bye-bye.